politics has changed over time because, you know, as popular as Mario Cuomo's speech was in 1984, the Democrats got crushed that year. And then in 1992, the Democratic Party itself shifted away from him toward Bill Clinton, toward the more centrist, you know, wing of the Democratic Party. It was almost like that Cuomo moment was something, the Mario Cuomo moment was something from a little bit earlier.
True, and you reference Clinton, and to Michaela's point of what kind of a president would he have been as an attorney, I say to myself, what kind of a Supreme Court justice would he have been? Because apparently that was ready to go, and he decided it's not a job that I'd like to pursue.
Run again? Is that why he didn't take the justice?
Well, it was, again, it was issues, budget issues in New York, so he had to stay in New York to get the job done, and then he ultimately ran for re-election, but by all accounts, Clinton was ready to give him the job.
So that begs the question, because we can't get it out of Chris necessarily, it's hard to get some stuff out of him. Let's talk about Andrew. Do you think, given the fact that his father didn't twice, it sounds like from urging, didn't take the Supreme Court nomination, Andrew has been viewed as a contender for a possible presidential candidate. Do you think some of this might change his thoughts now?
You know, maybe he looks at Dad's, I don't know, is my first answer. Sure. Yeah. But maybe he looks at Dad's experience and he admires the fact that Dad recognized his role as the governor of the state of New York and that he wasn't going to be like all the others and hustle off to a bake in Iowa or get to the snow of New Hampshire.
Michael Sparkanish, great to have you here with us talking about
Nice to
this.
see you.
Love talking politics like this, different eras. It's really fun. Remember, you can watch Sparkanish Saturdays at 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on CNN.
We're going to talk more about Governor Mario Cuomo's legacy. We'll get some insight from former New York Governor David Paterson coming up.
A new look from Men's Warehouse is the perfect way to step into the new year. For 4 days only, take an additional 50% off all clearance items, plus buy one, get one free on almost everything else in the store. Confidence sold here, only at Men's Warehouse.
This is the cat that drank the milk, and letting the dog that loved the man who drove to the control room.
Driver was not engaged.
Find parking space.
Parking space found.
That secured the data that directed the turbines, that powered the farm, that made the milk that went to the store, that reminded the man to buy the milk that was poured by the girl who loved the cat. The Internet of Everything is changing everything. Cisco, tomorrow starts here.
So what are you looking for in a man?
Intelligence, sense of humor, confidence, somebody that's interested in sports.
All the good ones are taken. That's not true. There's so many good ones on Match. Let me show you. That's a good one, right? That's a good one. Funny, kind, soccer fanatic. He's cute, right? Oh, exactly what you're looking for. Even if one of these guys isn't right for you, over 25,000 people join Match every day. Every day. Yowza!
Match. Start for free today.
Did someone say burn? Try out the seltzer relief juice. They work just as fast and are proven to taste better than tons of smoothies assorted fruit.
Amazing.
Yeah, I did that a lot.
Alka-Seltzer heartburn relief juice. Enjoy the relief. You're driving along, having a perfectly nice day, when out of nowhere a pickup truck slams into your brand new car. 1 second, it wasn't there, and the next second, boom, you had your first accident. Now you have to make your first claim. So you talk to your insurance company, and boom, you're blindsided for a second time. They won't give you enough money to replace your brand new car. Don't those people know you're already shaken up?
Liberty Mutual's new car replacement will pay for the entire value of your car, plus depreciation. Call 1-844-275-5004. And for drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise your rates due to your first accident. Switch to Liberty Mutual Insurance and you could save up to $423. Call Liberty Mutual for a free quote today at 1-844-275-5004. See car insurance in a whole new light. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
CNN Tuesday. The former NFL star charged with murder, Aaron Hernandez, hears shocking evidence. But will the jury see it all? Downward spiral inside the case against Aaron Hernandez. Tuesday night at 9 on CNN.
Girl, did you see the season finale last night?
You know the secret relationship.
Are you listening to what I'm saying?
Oh, God, it doesn't even matter. You know what?
Get more love for less. 2 flaky bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits are now
$3.
It's the end of the year, but the beginning of something massive. It's Tire Kingdom's year-end clearance event. Through Sunday, January 4th, get our lowest prices of the year on all the best tire brands. Michelin, Goodyear, Nitto, Cooper, and Yokohama. During the year-end clearance event, only while supplies last and only at Tire Kingdom. With over 100,000 tires on sale, come in for our best deal of the year. Tire Kingdom Service Centers. That's all you need.
When you start the day with McCafe coffee, it's easier to spread the lovin'.
Because it's freshly brewed and made any way you choose, and as low as just $1.
Peterson Cooper. This is CNN.
This morning, remembering former New York Governor Mario Cuomo. He passed away last night at the age of 82, just hours after his son Andrew was sworn in for a second term in the job that Mario served in for 12 years. Governor Cuomo was one of the great orators. He was a beacon for liberalism. He was also the father of our friend, New Day anchor, Chris Cuomo. Joining us now to talk about the former governor is former governor of New York, David Paterson. He served directly before the current governor, Mario's son, Andrew. Good morning, Governor. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning, Happy New Year, but it sure hasn't gotten off to a very good start.
No, thank you for being with us. As you look back on not just the career, but the life, the legacy of Governor Cuomo, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that Mario Cuomo graduated at the top of his class in the 50s of St. John's Law School, then went on to become a governor. But in the interim, he was denied the opportunity to work for some of the top law firms, and he felt it was because of his Italian descent. So what he did, as so many people have done, is make sure that the path for others was clearer than it was for him.
Fascinating. I want to play, because you brought up his past, his roots, where he came from. I want to play you a little bit from his keynote address at the 1984 Democratic National Convention, because he talks about his parents who came to the United States with nothing and the lessons that he learned from them. Let's listen.
That struggle to live with dignity is the real story of the shining city. And it's a story, ladies and gentlemen, that I didn't read in a book or learn in a classroom. I saw it and lived it like many of you. I watched a small man with thick calluses on both his hands work 15 and 16 hours a day. I saw him once literally bleed from the bottoms of his feet. A man who came here uneducated, alone, unable to speak the language, who taught me all I needed to know about faith and hard work by the simple eloquence of his example. I learned about our kind of democracy from my father, and I learned about our obligation to each other from him and my mother. They asked only for a chance to work and to make the world better for their children.
Governor, those were Mario Cuomo's politics, but they were also, it was his life.
Well, in that same speech, he points out that at the time in 1984, there were more people living without food or shelter than at any time since the Great Depression. Tens of millions of people thrown out of work, and as he described it, a people, rather than living more at peace with ourselves, are actually more divided than ever. And he described it as region against region, class against class, the have-nots, the haves against the have-nots, and the have-lesses. This man was dynamic, articulate, courageous. He could have been the President of the United States. He was that great.
You occupied the office that he held for 12 years. What was it like to sit there in that chair? How did his service to the state of New York inspire you?
Well, for me, it was very humbling. Governor Cuomo had gone through a great recession in 1991 and had to cut a lot of programs, and I was among those voices criticizing him because we all had a pretty progressive agenda, and we couldn't spend any money because he wanted to cut the budget. 17 years later, I'm sitting in the same chair saying the same thing he did and getting kicked around the same way he did by the same colleagues. So it was a humbling experience for me. But in talking to him during that particular time, he advised me that you have to do what you think will be right 10 to 15 years later. Your colleagues aren't going to think about it. What advice that was.
If we only did all live by politicians could live by. You know, he came up in the rough and tumble politics of New York State, not unlike you. You know, he saw what fights can be like. He ran for mayor and he lost. He had internal fights all the way. But he seemed to do it in a way with a smile. What lessons do you think he got from New York in the politics here?
As much as he lost his temper, and believe me, that was awful, and as passionate as he was, and I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
As passionate as he was, talking about the issues, there was a grace and a warmth about him. When you were with him, you felt comfortable and relaxed. And in a lot of ways, I felt protected sitting and talking to him because he exhibited such a dynamic quality, which he's passed along to his sons, Andrew Cuomo, who would have to be considered down the road as a presidential candidate because he's the only one that seems to be able to work across party lines in this country. And of course, CNN's own Chris Cuomo was a tremendous anchor.
No, when you hear about Mario Cuomo from people like you, from Chris, from others, it's that fierce intellect that people like to talk about, the thirst for knowledge, and also the respect for knowledge. The New York Times opened today, Adam DeBerti wrote a great piece where he said that Mario Cuomo could have Socratic arguments with himself.
Yes, he actually could, because his whole idea about trying to persuade people was trying to understand where they were coming from in the first place. So he wanted to see sometimes if he could actually debate the opposite point of view to try to reach an understanding of how he could reach those people. And a little earlier, somebody said something about turning away from Mario Cuomo in 1992 to support President Clinton, who was a centrist. Well, President Clinton is a dynamic political figure, but I think what we're missing here is Barack Obama ran for president in 2008, basically on the same agenda that Mario Cuomo was prophesizing in his speech at the Democratic Convention in San Francisco in 1984, which you just played. Sometimes it's not actually the point of view, it's the passion of the candidate. So that's why a Mario Cuomo or Barack Obama could have won, even with a progressive agenda. That's how Ronald Reagan could win with a very conservative agenda. Sometimes it really comes from the spirit of the individual who's the candidate, and there are very few people that can really have that impact on a society.
So interesting, you think the Democratic Party, in a way, has circled back to some of the politics of Mario Cuomo?
No, what I'm saying is that the Democratic Party, like the Republican Party, has different viewpoints that perhaps the consultants try to lay out each presidential race. But in that quadrennial referendum, what seems to be more important to the people is the image and the spirit and the courage of the individual who's running.
Well, spirit was something that Mario Cuomo had in abundance. Former Governor David Paterson, great to have you here with us on New Day. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, John.
Michaela.
Ahead, we're going to remember somebody else who had a tremendous influence on our world, our culture, Roger Ebert. You can see for yourself a new film, CNN film. It's called Life Itself. It's set to air Sunday night. Ebert's granddaughter is going to join us live. We'll talk more about the legacy also of our former New York governor, Mario Cuomo. We'll be right back.